Welcome to Off the Path Learning. My name is Lisa, and in this video we'll be talking about this mushroom right here. It's known as the winter mushroom, also the velvet shank, but probably it's best known by its common name of Enoki. This is Flammulina velutipes. Here in Quebec, we call this mushroom colibri à pied velouté. So enoki is a edible mushroom. It's not considered a choice edible mushroom, but it is considered a good edible, and it also has medicinal properties that we'll be going over a little later on. It's a great one to know because it's one of the few edible mushrooms that's available during this time of the year. So it appears during the cold season, so late in the fall or early winter or very early in the spring. It could also reappear in the dead of winter when the temperatures kind of warm up a little bit and there are these brief periods of thaws. You can go out and maybe potentially find this mushroom. So this mushroom really likes to grow on dead standing American elms, which is what you're seeing right here. There are a lot of dead standing elms here, but it can also grow on poplars or willows. This, by the way, is Gator. This is our new puppy. Yes, he's a puppy. He is 8.5 months old at this point. He is a bull mastiff, and he has my whole heart. I absolutely love him. He's put Shadow in kind of an early retirement. If she doesn't feel like going on a walk with us, she kind of stays home, and she's like, "You're good with Gator, Mom. He's going to take care of business." So a bull mastiff is very different than a cattle dog, but having a bull mastiff raised by a cattle dog is probably a winning combination. So this mushroom is cultivated and sold worldwide, specifically in Japan, where it's known under the name of enotake. But the cultivated variety of this mushroom looks very, very different. You've probably seen it. It's those really long white mushrooms that you get in your Asian soups. Those are grown under different conditions with no light, and they're a slightly different species, but they are essentially the same mushroom. So this mushroom is not considered easy to forage because it is a little brown mushroom, an LBM as it's known. And so there are a lot of little brown mushrooms around that are kind of hard to distinguish from each other. And most importantly, there is a deadly look-alike to this mushroom, and that's why you want to make sure that you're very aware of these two different mushrooms. So that's why this is not considered a safe mushroom for beginner foragers. But we'll go over the distinction between this mushroom, the enoki, and its deadly look-alike, the Deadly Galerina. So the Deadly Galerina's Latin name is Galerina marginata. It's also known as the funeral bell or the deadly skullcap. So there are physical features that you can look at that will clearly help you identify the difference between the enoki and the Deadly Galerina, and we'll go over that. So the most important difference between this edible mushroom and its deadly look-alike will be the spore print. So you should be taking spore prints. This mushroom will have a white spore print. Its deadly look-alike, the Deadly Galerina, will have a rusty brown spore print. So that is your safest bet when trying to identify this mushroom positively. It's not something you want to mess around with. You could literally die from making a mistake. The Deadly Galerina contains amatoxins, which is the same compounds that are found in the deadly amanitas, so you want to take it seriously. Another feature that'll be important to distinguish the Enoki versus the Deadly Galerina is that the Deadly Galerina has a partial veil. The Enoki does not have a partial veil. And that partial veil will leave a ring around the stem of the Deadly Galerina, and you will not see that on the Enoki, given that it doesn't have a partial veil. So that's a very important distinction. But other than that, the two mushrooms look very, very similar. The velvet shank, or the Enoki, has a velvet foot. It has like a fine velvety fuzz on the stalk, and it gets more prominent near the bottom. And the bottom of the stalk is very dark, almost black, but it's a gradient from the top of the stalk being kind of like whitish, yellowish, going orange, down to like dark brown. The Deadly Galerina has a similar thing going on. It doesn't have the velvet, but it looks really similar. It's the same sort of size. These are small mushrooms. There is this difference in the growth pattern. The Enoki will typically grow in big clusters, quite large clusters, whereas the Deadly Galerina will be a little bit more gregarious, but they both grow on wood. So the Enoki will always be growing on wood, and most commonly on dead standing trees like this. If you see it terrestrially, which I think is very, very rare, but if you do see that, it's because it's growing on wood. Let's go over some more physical features of the Enoki so that you can properly identify it. The cap is of this beautiful color. It kind of has this like yellowish, brownish to orangey reddish color, and it's typically darker in the center. Another physical feature of the cap is that it's very kind of slimy when it's fresh, and then it gets tacky. So you can see here that the cap is so tacky that I'm able to pick them up with just pushing my finger into them. The gills are white, sometimes yellowish white, and they are attached to the stalk. Now, the spore print of this mushroom, as we went over, is white, so you'll see that in the gills, especially as the mushroom gets older. If there are mushrooms on top of each other, you might even see remnants of the spore print on the cap of the mushroom that's below. Given that the Deadly Galerina has a rusty brown spore print, you'll see that color on the underside. You'll see that color in the gills, especially as the specimens get older. So those are two distinguishing features that are important between the Enoki and the Deadly Galerina. The Enoki's role in the forest is to decompose this wood, so you'll always find it on wood. In terms of odor or taste, there's not going to be any distinct odor or taste when you're testing this mushroom out in the field, but that in itself is kind of a feature to look for. In terms of medicinal properties and beneficial compounds of the Enoki is highly nutritious and contains several beneficial compounds to our body, like polysaccharides, that will help modulate our immune system. These beneficial compounds can help improve our cognitive function, regulate blood sugar levels, reduce high blood pressure, lower cholesterol, and help with skin and gut health. The Enoki mushroom is also reported to have anti-tumor, anti-cancer, anti-inflammatory, and antioxidant properties. So that's it for the Enoki mushroom. Thank you so much for being here with us today. We hope that you learned a little bit about this mushroom, and we hope that you get out there and find it for yourself. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you on the next one.